welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. I am Tommy Harvey, along with JT, SC Romero, and Andy Pham. Tonight we're going to discuss what happened in Week 1 of the college football season. All that will be coming up right now. All right, guys, let's commence with the overreactions.
Absolutely.
And let me do my victory lap real quick. The dude Sanders, man. We'll talk about it, but I've been on him since day one. Love the kid. Love to see him get off to a hot start. Big test coming up for him, at the end of September. But man, I love seeing what Colorado did. It was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was big time. Matter of fact, that is probably the first game we're going to get to. So, JT, let's go and start us off, buddy.
Yeah, man, it's just a fantastic way to start off the weekend. Just a super exciting game, back and forth. You were hoping Colorado was going to show up. I don't think anyone thought they were going to show up as much as they did with what they did, but it was just a fantastic game. I'm watching this thing. I actually had a Devy draft going on right in the middle of it, and it was getting up to me, and I was like, please get to me before this game gets very far in, because I had Sanders locked and loaded to take him in my Devy pick, and I was like, dude, if somebody takes too long to get to me, somebody's going to steal him where he gets to me. I got him right when I got him. Everybody was like, oh, no, well, I was going to take him. I was like, yes. So I was pumped. Just a great game. I mean, the guy looked fantastic. Moved the ball over. His accuracy was phenomenal. Short, deep passes, got everybody involved. Just super pumped for those guys. People were, kind of dogging them. SC and me at the beginning of the year, we said, I just love this kid. I said, I'm not sure why people don't, just because he played at a small school, but I loved him. He was great. Travis Hunter, I took Travis Hunter in a supplemental draft in the second round. People thought I was nuts. They said, he's not even going to play wide out. Why are you even? I was like, I take talent. I want talent. He came out, balled out, showed that he is one of the most talented players in the country. And then Dylan Edwards was a guy that just, shocked and amazed. Man, that guy's got some burst. So some of the TCU guys were great as well, especially the running backs showed some talent. But, man, Colorado was the story.
Yeah, I mean, piggyback off that, Shedeur, I think game one, broke a school record for passing yards, 4 receivers over 100 yards. The question is going to be, Travis Hunter, as we scout him and see everything, is he going to be a wide receiver or a defensive back? Where do we have it? Tommy, we have a C2C league where someone started him as a defensive back, so he didn't get the points as a wide receiver. So that's going to be a ongoing debate, I think, because that's just a pure talent. And you love seeing what Coach Prime is doing in Colorado, because he's just building this atmosphere of just this winning mentality, but yet still go out there and just have fun. You saw that in Colorado. They were having a good time. Dylan Edwards, I like him. He looked good, but he's still question marks. I still don't really know where to place him, what's going to happen with him, but what Shedeur is doing over there. I mean, Shiloh, too. Shiloh led the team in tackles, I do believe, solo tackles this past year. So the Sanders brothers are there, and they're making it known that, hey, we are the offspring to, Deion Sanders, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, Deion definitely brought his Gucci with him, didn't he?
100%.
What you got on this game, Andy?
I have no clue what to think. I mean, coming in, all the talk was how dysfunctional Colorado would be, this and that, but no one talked about TCU. TCU only returned 15% of their roster from last year that made the national championship. We don't know how good they are. Last year, they were horrible on defense. They allowed big plays after big plays after big plays. So for me, it's still a big question mark of how I value these guys. With Sanders, he played a great game, but it was a very smart game plan. A lot of short passes, and when he had to throw deep, he made the throws. So I was impressed with him. I still don't know how to evaluate the entire team. As far as TCU, I love Amani Bailey. I think if he didn't fumble early, he would have got those touchdowns instead of Trey Sanders. So to me, I think for TCU, he's the guy to have in that backfield. As far as Colorado goes, Travis Hunter is a stud. But with Dylan Edwards, I was totally off on him. I didn't know what to expect. So to me, that was a big eye opener.
Yeah, Edwards has so much speed, and that last touchdown he had with the long touch, what was it, 4th and 5 or whatever, when he caught that ball coming out of the backfield, he took off and nobody was within 15 yards of it. He has so much burst and so much speed that he's going to run away from everybody. And at the end of the day, what are we supposed to think because of his diminutive stature? You know, he's so small. Does
And
that play in
also-
the NFL at all?
And also with Colorado, they couldn't run at all. I mean, they were horrible. And so now you have them playing Nebraska coming up with Matt Rule. They could play a 2-deep zone, try to make them run. So this upcoming game is going to answer a lot of questions too.
Yeah, I mean, that was one knock I had on Sadur is, you know, I was really impressed with his dual threat capabilities, and we just didn't see that. I think he had negative yardage when it came to rushing. So it was something you definitely want to build. But again, I think that comes with the coaching staff. But, you know, it's something that they're going to be a story all season long, because as soon as they slip up, we're going to know about it, right? If they continue to succeed, we're going to know about it. TCU coming from a national championship playoff team and looking like that, I mean, they held their own. It wasn't like it was a blowout, so it's still a very good back and forth game, like JT said earlier. But it does raise concerns for TCU as well. Like they just didn't show what we saw last year when they had Quentin Johnston and Max Duggan on the field.
And then to bring it back to Dylan Edwards, what he's like 5'6", 165.
He's tiny.
That's not that's not going to play in the NFL. So right now, all he is just a CFF play that you just hope get maybe 4 or 5 catches out of the backfield and maybe scatters home. But I don't know.
And the thing with Colorado is their offensive line is really, really bad. Their offensive line is terrible. One of the worst offensive lines in the entire country. Bad. So Sanders is going to get sacked a lot. So he's always going to be fighting that negative yardage in the running department, because he's going to be sacked all the time. I mean, he took 4 sacks Saturday against a team that you're not expecting to have a lot of sacks. So whenever they get into facing Texas and Oklahoma and those Big 12 teams, or the Pac-12 teams, sorry. Whenever they get into facing USC next year, they're joining the Big 12. So whenever they start facing Oregon and USC and, you know, all Utah, teams that have good defenses or good players on defense who can get after you, he's just going to take more and more and more sacks. Is he going to be able to withstand that type of punishment?
The question I have, though, does Shedeur need to win to show that he's great, or will the numbers speak for themselves? Like if he goes into Nebraska, has a phenomenal game, better than this past one, but loses, does that move him differently, or is it more so, okay, maybe it was a defense giving up the big play or something like that?
If he loses to Nebraska, that is a big red flag. Nebraska's not good.
Because here's the thing, like with Sanders, people for whatever reason don't like him. Maybe because Coach Prime, they rub people off the wrong way. Whatever the case is, people don't like him. So if they lose to Nebraska, or if he doesn't play well, whatever, that's just that feel that they're just going to say, see, he's not good. Deion's not good. They're not good. It was just a fluke. And right or wrong, that's what that narrative is going to be.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, so they're going to have to take care of business against teams like Nebraska, against Arizona State, against I haven't gone over their entire schedule, but they're going to have to take care of business against those teams. They can lose to USC, they can lose to a Utah, they can lose to an Oregon, a Washington, even a Washington State or Oregon State. but they need to beat those mid to lower tier teams, or else their momentum is going to die quickly.
They close out the season against Utah, so that'll be fun to watch.
Right. All right. Well, how about we move on to UTSA against Houston? JT, go and get started off there, buddy.
Man, UTSA was my team last year. I love those guys. I've been watching for a couple seasons. Frank Harris led me to a championship at C2C last year. Was pumped to see him against Houston in this game. And then, man, Houston shut him down. Missing Franklin, missing Clark at wide receiver. It showed big time. His stats were not good. He looked uncomfortable the whole game. Cephas was only really his weapon out there. And they just really struggled to move the ball. Houston's defense was better than I thought it'd be. UTSA, actually, I thought they did a pretty good job on the Houston offense. This was a game I was expecting a lot more of a shootout, and to see it be finished 17-14 with both teams kind of struggling on offense was a little bit of a shock to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny that you said, last year he was your team. Last year they opened up against Houston and he went, Frank Harris, that is, went 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. This year it was flip-flopped, so I think Houston just had this number. They knew what to expect with it. But it also shows, one guy we talked about a lot was Zaire Franklin, and him not being there makes a big impact. Who else is going to step up? And you want to see those next players, right, that say, okay, look, this is my time to shine. And I didn't see that when it came to it. It was a little impressed with Donovan Smith coming out. What was it going to be like after Clayton Tune? He won the game, so that's good. And, he didn't throw any interceptions or anything. So definitely nice to see there. I think, he's not right now. I'm not saying he's next tune or anything. It's going to be some troubling times with this Houston team. I mean, it's something that we saw some highlights in these past few years with them on just them building up, getting wide receivers ready. And I don't see that we saw that same momentum this past week against a team like UTSA. That's typically, your team you write off as an easy win, and I think it was a very difficult win for them, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board to try to find something different to work.
Yeah, when I was watching the game, Frank Harris, he did not trust his receivers. You could tell he was missing his guys, and it took a while for him and Cephas to hook up, but he looked lost the entire time. And it was Kavarian Barnes that actually kept him in the game, and that's a shock for UTSA. When you think of UTSA, you think of a high-powered offense, but Frank Harris looked absolutely lost. As far as Houston, I was actually impressed with Sam Brown. He was the one that got the deep passes. He was the one that got all the targets and all the catches. 6 targets, 6 catches, over 100 yards. Matthew Golden played the more possession guy, the first down guy, or to get the first down. So that was a little interesting as well. But overall, I thought Houston looked a lot more impressive than UTSA. I have Frank Harris and Cephas on my C2C team, so I'm a little concerned, but we'll see.
Now, you had mentioned Donovan Smith, SC. Do you see any type of NFL prospects with him?
Not right now, no. I mean, I think we had to see a lot more coming out of him. And I think that just comes with the school of Houston, right? When you're at I want to say a lower tier school, but when you're not at one of these top tier 25, always top 25 schools, you have to do more than just the average. And I don't even think he's there just being average quite yet. So right now, I can't see it. I mean, if he is, he's a day 3 prospect. There's no way right now he's going day 1 or day 2, practice squad eligible if he's getting there.
To me, he reminds me of like a poor man's version of Joe Milton. Same size, has a strong arm, obviously not as strong as what Joe has, but he has a strong arm. He's mobile. He does not make as good of decisions. I think Donovan Smith is going to throw a lot of interceptions because of that. But to me, just his size, I mean, he almost looks like Joe Milton out there. I don't think he's going to play to that type of capability. But if he does, then you have another guy who you're able to throw in that mix for probably. It's obviously not going to be the 2024 draft, but the 2025 draft. Mm-hmm. I mean, he could be getting the same type of buzz Joe Milton is this year.
But I mean, you have what 2025. That is when the like Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. I think.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in a
Next
sense,
year. Yeah.
outside of
Next
Colorado joining, in a sense, the conference kind of gets a little bit easier, right? So that'll be that time where it's like, okay, this is kind of your opportunity to showcase everything, right? Because Texas had a great play this year, this past week, so it's gonna be able to see what they're doing. He doesn't necessarily need to win that game against Texas or anything, but he needs to at least show he can do something, and take the ball down the field and everything.
Fair. Andy, you mentioned Kavorian Barnes. I'm actually really high on Kavorian Barnes. I think he has the potential to be a next level type of running back. I actually think he's a Power 5 starting running back if he were to transfer out after this year. What do you think of his pro prospects?
I mean, right now, if he stays at the G5 level, probably a day 3 guy. But he does run with power. He's got deceptive speed. So I do like that combination. If you were to transfer up to a Power 5, I think that would enhance his stock. But right now, probably day 3.
Yeah, that comes into question, school and situation and circumstance with a lot of these guys. We're going to talk about one a little bit later on. That his circumstance last year was below ideal. Now he's the guy that I'm speaking of has moved on to a elite program and is blowing up. I'm gonna let the viewers kind of chew on that for a minute, kind of think, kind of rack their brains on who I'm talking about. But we will get to him a little bit later on. Our next game. We're going to talk about Florida and Utah. There was very little to no offense in this game whatsoever, especially on the Florida side. What do you guys think about this, JT?
Yeah, I watched a majority of this game. I was watching a few other games at the same time. But yeah, I expected it to kind of be more of a defensive battle, and it was. With Cam Rising out for Utah, I figured they weren't going to try to press a lot. They got the early long touchdown, I think, which took the pressure off for them. I like Jaquindon Jackson. I think he's got a shot. I didn't think he'd get a chance to really totally show out because of how conservative they were playing. But, man, if I'm a Florida fan, I'm worried about this Florida team. I couldn't figure out what they were doing in the offseason. I wasn't sure the QB I was like, what are they doing at QB? I don't see it at all. As I saw Mercer at Wisconsin last year, and I didn't think he was good at Wisconsin. So Florida could be in for a long year in the SEC. That is for sure. Utah, I thought it was just impressive that they played tough defense. I think that being that they're one of the few good defenses in the Pac-12, I think is going to keep them in it. But yeah, it was a little bit of a rough game to watch. At least it was close. There were some big moments, but yeah, it was kind of ugly.
But before we move on to SC, you had mentioned the running back for Utah, Jaquindon Jackson. I actually have recently moved him well down in my Devy rankings. After watching that game, I don't think he's going to be able to handle a big time load. I know he has the size for it. I just don't think he has the talent for it.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a little bit more chance to see if I see something from him. I wasn't a huge guy on him coming in. I know a lot of other people talked about him, but I was interested to kind of see what he'd do. But like I said, I wasn't super impressed. I'm going to give him that's one game that was a defensive battle without their starting QB. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens with him the rest of the year.
He seemed really stiff and really slow to me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, SC, go and talk about this Utah and Florida game.
Man, so Utah, I'll be honest, I don't like them. I'm an Oregon fan, and they dominate, man. They have a solid defense, and we just saw that here going against an SEC team that their offensive weapon, it just shows how important Cam Rising is for that team. They also didn't have their starting tight end in Brant Coote, who was a big reason why Dawson Kincaid exploded, right? Because he was hurt as well last year. So this is another guy that I feel – Utah's going to be something to watch once Cam Rising is there. And for Jaquindon Jackson, Micah Bernard, your running backs, it's because they knew they didn't have that upside with Cam Rising, right? So they didn't have him in there to make the plays down the field or anything like that. They knew what they could kind of focus in on. On the flip side for Florida, we knew Graham Mertz wasn't anything. We've talked about that where it's like, okay, we can wash him off. He's not really something we're keeping an eye on. So the question comes down to their running game. It was just kind of atrocious. But I mean, is that a bad running game for Florida or just a great running defense in Utah? Because it can't go either way. But I mean, you had Trevor Etienne, Montreal Johnson. You wanted to see more for them, and I just feel they just got stuffed, and it's not getting easier. They play Tennessee next week. I think after that they have Charlotte, and then they go to some troubling schools. So it's gonna be a huge wake-up call next week just to see how they flip it around. But that's a big concern for me in those running backs because I expected some big games out of them this season, and right out the gate, it's like, man, I don't know if I can expect that.
Yeah, see, I think this week Florida's got McNeese State, and which they're going to dominate them. But next week they got Tennessee coming to Gainesville, and Tennessee's defense against Virginia looked like it was legit. Obviously, Virginia doesn't have much, in terms of offense. But if you watch Tennessee's defense last year compared to their first game this year, complete 180. Andy, go ahead and talk about this game a little bit.
I'll start with the Florida running backs. With Trevor Etienne, it's always been, to me, one extreme or the other. Like he came into Florida at around 220. He was a little bloated. He was a little sluggish. And he said he wanted to be more explosive in the offseason. So he trimmed down to around like 206, I believe. And he wanted to be more explosive. He wanted to be a better pass blocker. He wanted to be a better pass catcher. There was a play in the first half where he needed to pick up a blitz, and he completely missed. It was atrocious. And as far as with him running, with him losing all that weight, he was explosive, but he lost all the power that he had. So I think he has to find a nice balance. I think 206 right now is a little too light. 220 or 219 last year was too heavy. I think he needs to find the right balance. With Montreal Johnson, to me, he's just a jag. He's not going to be anything special at the next level. He's just a guy that gets in the way of carries. And so for Utah, with Jackson, I was never high on him as a prospect just because he was a quarterback converting to a running back. So he never had the nuance of the position. And now he's going to Utah, and all offseason long, the entire Devy community was high on him. They were bouncing him up to like the 4th, 5th rounds in startups, and I just never saw it. He doesn't pass block. He doesn't. When he runs, he doesn't find the holes. He just runs where he's supposed to, and he picks up yards. And if he's able to juke someone out, he gains extra yards. But as far as a complete running back goes, he's got a lot to do. And I was never high on him. For the entire receivers for the game, Eugene Wilson has juice, and he needs to be on the field. You saw it. Like when he was out there and they schemed it up for him, he was faster than everyone. He was more elusive than everyone. And I think he's the guy. If Florida's going to win games, he's going to have to play.
Yeah. That's the issue with Florida is their overall team speed. Their defense was slow. Their offense didn't move at all. The only semblance of speed they had out there was, like you said, it was Eugene Wilson.
Yeah, and with Florida, I mean, next year they have I believe 2 or 3 recruits coming in that are 4 stars that are pretty good, and they also have a quarterback that's coming in. But we're talking about a team that is years away, and if they fumbled it with Jaden Rashada. You know, if they couldn't get 15 mil for the NIL, fine, come up with 8, come up with 7. Do something, but you completely lose out on him, and then you don't go in the portal to grab someone. You're telling me you're the University of Florida. You couldn't convince Michael Pratt from Tulane and give him $4 or $5 million and say, hey, play at a Power 5 for 1 year, improve your stock. You're telling me the University of Florida couldn't do that? That's pretty sad.
Yeah. They couldn't go out and get a Michael Pratt or a Riley Leonard. That's an issue because they were forced to go out and get Graham Mertz, who was not good at Wisconsin, is not going to be good at Florida.
Come a long way since the Tebow era.
fallen a long way since the Tebow era.
Absolutely.
All right, our next game, we got Boise State and Washington. What do you got for us, JT?
Well, Michael Penix Jr. Picked up where he left off, man. The guy was just slinging it everywhere. Boise State is definitely not as good as they used to be. They're a little bit down, but man, Washington, that offense is high powered. All those guys coming back, Adunez, McMillan. I mean, they look good. There's going to be a lot of scoring in the Pac-12 this year, and I'm here for these USC, Colorado, Oregon, Washington games. I think it's going to be super exciting to watch some of this West Coast football this year. Going to be a ton of offense.
Well, and the cool thing was that it wasn't just Adunze and Jalen McMillan doing it. Jalen Polk looked good. Jeremy Bernard looked good. And I'm sorry, it's still weird to me to see a left-hander throwing the football. It's odd.
It definitely comes off weird when you see it, especially on the deep passes. It's just like it doesn't look right when you see it come out of his hand. It just throws you off when you're not used to seeing those lefties.
Yeah, it's like a mirror image of what you're actually supposed to be looking at.
No, I mean, Michael Penix probably rose heavily on my board. I think a lot of quarterbacks did, but just the way he performed in that game was just kind of flawless. He just looked phenomenal. He moved his receivers around. He was targeting different receivers. He wasn't stuck on just one. He made multiple athletes look great. And that could be Boise's just not a great defense, sure. But, I mean, what JT said, it's going to be a fun year in the Pac-12, especially, I guess, since everyone's leaving this next year, that they're just going to be like, let's show out, let's go out with a bang. And I'm excited to see the games against Colorado and Shadur, against Bo Nix and Oregon, USC and Caleb. Those are going to be some great games. And it's really like, I hope the defense doesn't show up so these quarterbacks can just go out there and ball. And that's kind of what we saw this weekend. Michael Penix, he looked great. Odinja looked great. McMillan looked great. Every receiver there looked great. On the flip side, I was one of our guys at DynastyPros. I was really huge on George Holani for Boise State, the running back. And, man, it's looking scary that he's going to be splitting some carries here with Genty.
He's so much more explosive.
Right. And so that's, something where I personally wasn't prepared for. So now my eyes are open to saying, okay, this is a backfield kind of need to monitor, because Dempsey might be on your waivers because Hulini was their lead back last year. So we might see some difference in occasion there. And definitely something that I'll keep my eyes on moving forward to see if they keep the 50-50 split carries or if Juan gets a little bit more opportunity down the line.
Well, it looked like in the passing game it was going to be Genty. So when they have passing situations, he's going to be out there. I will say this: hopefully, I'm not jinxing them, but preseason I did have Washington making the college football playoff.
Oh, nice.
After Boise State, I don't think that's a hot take. They look phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, preseason they were a top 10 team, anyways. So I mean, it's not necessarily hot takey, anyways. But I think that they're going to beat Southern Cal whenever they play. So I obviously I think the winner of that goes to the college football playoff, and I think it's just going to be Washington. All right, Andy, we're up to you, bud.
I'll talk about Boise first, since that'll be easier. With their quarterback, Taylor Green, he's been a Devy or C2C darling. He's been taken highly in drafts, and with him, I wanted to see him take the next step as a passer. We know he's an explosive runner. He was able to make some passes when I was watching the game. So I think if you have him on like a roster, like a C2C roster, I think you're still okay with him. But as far as him being a Devy prospect, I think that is still a long ways to go. I think Washington really exposed Taylor Green for just a quarterback who's really athletic, who just needs to improve his passing game. They don't really have any receivers there to help him out. So I think Boise's going to try to run it for 300 yards every game. With Washington, this is another tough eval for me. With Michael Penix, some people have him as the quarterback 3 for the draft class. Some people have him maybe late first round. I don't know. I think he's propped up by the system. And I just have a tough time evaluating him and seeing him being a first-round pick or being the third quarterback off the board next year. As far as what he's doing in college, they're going to be great. They have a full cupboard of weapons. McMillan, Odunze, Polk, Bernard. It is going to be fun watching them play for college purposes. With Penix, I think he's got every right, for a possible Heisman run. They're going to win most of their games, if not all. I mean, they have 2 tough games. If they can get by Oregon and USC, he could be in New York for the Heisman. So that's going to be interesting. As far as the receivers, I've always been higher on Rome Odunze, and I think he's the one that's going to get drafted first in the NFL of between him and McMillan.
McMillan looked so good the other day, though. I personally had McMillan over Odunze. It's not a big separation, but I think they could both be late first, early second round type picks. I just like McMillan's game a little bit more. He seems a little bit more versatile. He doesn't seem to be scared of the contact. He'll actually play through it. Odunze seems to kind of try to skirt around it a little bit. And I don't know if that really translates more to the NFL than what McMillan's game does.
Do y'all think, because y'all both brought up playoffs possibilities for them, do y'all think a one-loss Pac-12 team still gets into the playoffs though?
Depends on the other teams. I mean, if Alabama loses 3 games, then absolutely. LSU's already lost. Mm-hmm. Clemson's already out of it, I think. My 4 teams were Georgia, Ohio State, Washington, and Florida State. Those are my 4 teams. Ohio State is kind of iffy to me right now. My 5th team, honestly, would actually be Texas. If Texas gets by Alabama on Saturday, they have a really good shot at running the table.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge game for them.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, in all honesty, I took USC, Florida State, Georgia, and Michigan were the 4 teams I took at the year. I thought if USC, because I thought the Pac-12 was going to be exciting, I thought even if they had one loss because of Caleb Williams and Riley, that they could get in. So I thought Florida State could go undefeated. So that's why I figured they would slide in. But yeah, I think though a one-loss Pac-12 team, if they're going to do it, this would be the year because there's actually a lot more good teams. So it's not like people are like, oh, they only played 1 game, so they lost that 1 game, so they're out in my mind. I definitely think that could be the case. So that's kind of the 4 guys I kind of threw in.
I like it.
Sure thing. All right. Well, how about we move on to Florida and LSU? Florida State and LSU. There's a lot to discuss here. Matter of fact, we're going to go ahead and jump into this because this is my guy right here. Keon Coleman. I've kind of been banging the drum for him for the majority of the offseason ever since he transferred. At Michigan State, he was on a nothing team and a nothing offense, so he was not able to showcase anything. He had a bad quarterback throwing to him, who has also since transferred away to Auburn. But his size with the height and weight, his speed, his athletic profile, his ability to go up and catch the 50-50 ball, all that was on display against a supposedly really good team in LSU the other night. And he showed that he has that top-notch potential. I've actually moved him to number 3 in my Devy wide receiver rankings. He was in the 20s just because you really didn't know what to expect. I always knew he had that size and speed and athletic profile, but the fact that he put it all together the other night against an elite team showed me he is able to be that high end wide receiving prospect.
Yeah, I love it. I like what he did. He's the guy I was really intrigued about once I found out he was going to go to Florida State because I thought he had the athletic profile. But like you said, Michigan State was just awful. There was nothing he could do to look good at Michigan State. So I was pumped to see him be at Florida State and really show out. Another guy, Devy guy that I'm high on that I said was probably my RB1 in this draft class was Trey Benson. Now, I didn't expect him to have a huge game this game just because I knew LSU's tough up front. I was expecting if they won this game, it was going to be throwing the ball. It was going to be Jordan Travis. So I'm not super disappointed, even though 12 for 47, no touchdowns, not a great look for Benson. But I just didn't expect a lot in this game from him because I thought they'd throw the ball. I really liked Florida State coming in this game. When you took Jordan Travis versus Daniels for me, I just like Jordan Travis so much more than Daniels. And I thought this game completely proved it. I'm just worried about Daniels. I don't know why. I just don't like him. I just don't like his game. And the way that LSU uses him has been iffy for me. I like Malik Neighbors. I am a little worried now after watching this game. He did have 6 for 67, so it wasn't like he wasn't great, but man, they really utilized Brian Thomas a whole lot more than they did Neighbors. I'm hoping Neighbors still stays up there as he's pretty high on my Devy rankings, but I think FSU is really good, so I don't want to overstate that I think LSU is in trouble this year because I still think they have a good team, but I think Florida State. I told people my favorite bet, I think it was plus 460 was or Florida State to go undefeated regular season on DraftKings, and I love that bet because I just thought if they could get by this LSU game, I thought it was Clemson and bust. And after you've seen Clemson lose to Duke, I'm like, oh, now I love Florida State now. I already liked them a ton. I love them even more now. I did like what I didn't see. You didn't see a lot, but Mason Taylor to me still. Devy tight ends I know are tough, but I like Mason Taylor a lot. Even though he didn't get a ton of looks, I still think that guy has a lot of buzz. I think he's going to be good. But I'll let the rest of these guys jump in there. But I thought it was a great performance from Florida State.
Yeah, you mentioned Mason Taylor. He's number 3 in my tight end rankings. I think his athletic profile also translates to the NFL. He has a great pedigree. His father being a Hall of Famer. You're really able to tell that guy has some juice to him, and I'm really excited to see what he's able to do.
I don't think this was as much as an LSU is bad. It was just Florida State is good. Their defense was great. They were all over the field, making the plays, making the stops when they needed to. And Florida State's offense, phenomenal. I mean, once y'all were talking about Jordan Travis all offseason, I have a guy I work with, CGAT Blitz, who's a huge Florida State fan. I believe that's his alma mater, I think. But anyways, he talked about Jordan Travis all offseason, and he just looked phenomenal. Everything we were talking about, he showed it. We saw that when you were talking about Keon Coleman with Johnny Wilson. Even Jaheim Bell looked great. He had a 44-yard dime to him, which was awesome. And you'd love just seeing that momentum to Florida. The win helps Florida State more than the loss hurts LSU. So LSU still has a lot of time to bounce back. They can still go out there and potentially make the playoffs if they have a great run because it wasn't horrible what they did on offense. Again, it was just Florida State had a great defense. We do want to see more, from Malik Neighbors. It wasn't such a bad game, but it was like, man, really had you high up in the rankings. Thought you could do a little bit more with opportunities given, and it just wasn't there. But again, that's Florida State just having a great defense. Now, I'm excited to see what they do after that game, though. I think they run through the ACC. I think it's a big game. Drake Mays can have some fun. That was a huge guy that I think fell down in some of my rankings. He's still QB2, but now it's a lot closer than what I thought it was. And against a team like Florida State, that's going to be a huge indicator for me on where he's going to be at this upcoming season for the draft class.
I would like to see LSU move to Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's a much better quarterback. I think he has a much better understanding on what to do with the ball. And just the fact that one big example was that hit that Jaden Daniels took the other night. It's like he had nowhere to go with the ball, so he takes off trying to run directly through the line and jumps and just gets leveled. I mean, dream come true for a linebacker. I mean, you have a quarterback coming at you and then trying to leap into your arms. I mean, that is a dream hit for.
It's funny that you said that because when I saw that happen, I immediately texted a friend I go back and forth with on cards, and I was like, "Yo, what the fuck was that? Like, what was he thinking? You know, because it was legit. It wasn't even just going in like for a touchdown. He legit jumped like he was on Super Mario. You know, being Mario, jumped up and just got rocked. And it's like,
Middle of the field. It's not like he was going to go anywhere. I mean, it's just not smart. And I mean, for somebody who supposedly has NFL aspirations, that is not a smart play to make. I mean, for one, it's a terrible football play, and another, it's a terrible business decision. You're going to get killed.
As if there was someone like Palalamu on that team, Troy. You would have rocked him out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Andy, what thoughts do you have on this game?
Before I break down the game, I want to also add on to Garrett Nussmeier. I've been on record on the C2C podcast with those guys that my hot take was he would be the QB1 for the 25 class. So I am just waiting until the opportunity that he gets in there because I think he is the guy. And so I just wanted to add on to that before I broke down the game. But this game came down to coaching. We saw who was the good coach and who made adjustments, and the other guy just twiddled his thumbs the entire game. It was like, what happened? Like there was a play. There was a play late in the fourth where I think it was Thomas dropped the pass, and he was running on, and he came back to the sidelines, and the coach was like, "What happened?" I mean, that just summed up the entire game for me. But for these prospects, when I was looking at the quarterbacks, I don't think either starting quarterback or NFL material. I think Jordan Travis has the tools. I think the thing between his ears is what's going to cost him at the next level. He makes great throws. He makes athletic plays, but he makes bonehead decisions when he shouldn't be doing them. And so I don't think at the next level he's going to do anything. Jaden Daniels shouldn't even be starting at LSU. As far as the running backs with Trey Benson, I was always lower on him than the community was. He was another player that was rising up of Devy draft boards. And my concern with him was people always liked and want to point out that he broke a lot of tackles and stuff, and he's gonna do that on the next level. And for me, if you break a lot of tackles in college, you're not athletic enough. You're not fast enough. You're not shifty enough. You're just not good enough. And he didn't play all that well. And I also have concerns with his medicals. He had a really bad knee injury, and I have concerns at the next level if some team might just have him off the draft board. For the wide receivers, Keon Coleman, I knew about him last year when Michigan State played Michigan, and he single-handedly kept Michigan State in that game. I don't know the numbers off of my head, but I think he was like 7 for like 120 and 2 touchdowns. He mossed Michigan corners all day that game. So I knew about him way back then. So I knew about his game. Johnny Wilson, I don't see at the next level. I think he is just a slow possession receiver that just can't get open. And I don't think at the next level that is going to play well. I was a little disappointed with Malik Neighbors, but it was more the quarterback play. Preseason, I had Malik Neighbors as my wide receiver 2 for the class. So I was a little disappointed in that. I was also disappointed that none of the freshmen got to play. You know, Sampson, Brown, and Kyle Parker. Those were the 3 guys off season long. High recruits. They had good buzz. Everything that you heard about them was good. They didn't get a single snap. It was all the vets. We've seen them play. They aren't good. So I'm hoping with this loss that they'll loosen it up more, and then you'll see LSU play some of the young guys. But overall, I was pretty disappointed in LSU. They had a lot of hype coming in, and they just fell flat on their face.
Yep. You mentioned Johnny Wilson. To me, Johnny Wilson is a slightly more athletic Kelvin Benjamin. I don't think he has the necessary tools to be effective in the NFL. He's not fast. He's just tall. He doesn't run awkwardly the way Kelvin Benjamin did, but he's kind of slow and cumbersome. Good hands, can go up and get a ball. But I mean, if that's what you're looking for, then he's more of a possession receiver and a red zone target.
I think that's what some of your pro teams will use him as if he goes into that draft. I don't think he's a first round or even day 2 talent necessarily. He might sneak in there with a great season, but it's got to be something where it's like, okay, he's just our go guy. Just get in the end zone. Let's get him. Hail Mary type, or just red zone target, bring him in just to do a short slant route or anything like that.
Yeah. And then you were mentioning, you mentioned Trey Benson also. Where do you put him in terms of somebody like a Will Shipley? Do you have them kind of close together in the rankings, or do you have Shipley above him or below him, or what?
Me?
Yeah.
I am not a Will Shipley guy, so I have him. I have him like in the 40s, so I don't disrespect Trey Benson like that. Trey Benson, I don't have my rankings up right now, but I think overall, I think he's like number 10 or 11, 10 to 15 range. But Will Shipley, no.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't necessarily blame you for that. I think Shipley's a little slow. I've got Benson as my number 9 overall running back. And I got him, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got him 5th in this class. Do you think I'm too far off there, or is that kind of close to what you have him as well?
I don't know if Andy. I think I had him. I think he was number 3 for me originally at the start of the year. I was way lower on Shipley than a lot of people personally. I wasn't super high. I was kind of like Andy. I wasn't super high on him either. But I like Benson. I said he could make his way up to number 1 for me with a good season. Obviously, this is not the start he wants this season. He wants to have a good game against a run defense. But I had Benson as my top 5. I think he was number 3 when we did our running back show.
Gotcha. All right. How about we move on to our last game that we're actually going to get into, and then we'll start going through individual players. Let's talk about Clemson and Duke. I mean, Clemson is just – there's nothing special about Clemson and any of their players. We were talking pre-show about Cade Klubnik, and I think it's a Dabo Swinney issue, honestly. He brought in Garrett Riley to make the offense better. And it doesn't seem as if he's giving Garrett Riley the ability to control that offense. It's the same lame vanilla stuff that we saw with DJU. And to talk about DJU, now he's at Oregon State, and it looks like he's a different quarterback. So to me, it's a Dabo Swinney issue and not necessarily a quarterback issue. But the problem is that putting all this film together for Cade Klubnik, he plays for Dabo Swinney. So, I mean, his film is not going to get any better, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, watching the game, I really wanted to see Klubnik, to see kind of what he had. I've got him in a few Devy leagues and some stuff. And I had him, on that QB2, QB3 in that 2025 class behind Drew Allard. But, man, after watching that game, I'm nervous. If I got shares of him, I'm real nervous because if he stays with Clemson, Clemson's either going to have to do something completely different or he's going to have to transfer or his stock is just going to tank. The Clemson did not look good. Obviously, the turnovers hurt them. Even if they didn't have the turnovers, they probably win that game, but they don't win it going away. They barely slide by a not very talented Duke team. Now, Duke played out of their minds. They played great. They played, enthusiastic, happy for them with the win. Ryan Leonard looked solid, but not spectacular for two guys we like. Shipley was okay, but man, Clemson, for how much we've talked about what we thought talent-wise they had, they did not show it in this game at all. I'm nervous Devy-wise. I'm nervous for anybody on that team the rest of the year. The wide receivers didn't show out. Nobody really made separation against, obviously, a not great Duke team. I talked about it before the show. When your DB is picking up the ball on a full sprint with a head start on your quarterback and the quarterback runs him down before he gets to the end zone, that's not a good sign that, super talented DBs are fast DBs. And when the quarterback runs them down, it's a problem. So I'm nervous as can be. If I'm a Clemson fan, if I have Clemson players, Klubnik at this point, I usually am not advocating guys transfer, but it's like, oh man, if something doesn't change quick, he's got to be the first guy in the transfer portal after this season.
Those wide receivers too, because Adam Randall and Bo Collins and Antonio Williams are way too talented to not be utilized properly.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was gonna be where I was gonna lead off with was Antonio Williams, man. That was one of my top guys in the 2025 class. I think I have to move him down, to number 5, if that, and put Evan Stewart above him. I think that's just. I think Dabo's still living in the Deshaun Watson time, right? He's still living in, I've been there, I know what I'm doing. And that's like, okay, cool, but the game's evolving and you're not necessarily evolving with it. And that's always a problem when it comes to it. Because Klubnik, when we were talking about him, I really like the way this guy moves. He's very swift, he's agile, he can move around the pocket, but we just don't see enough of him taking over. It's like he's bounded, right? And he has his limitations. On the Duke side, I like what I saw with Riley Leonard. He looked great, and I think his downfall is going to be he just doesn't have great receivers, so you might downplay him a little bit, but don't let the average receivers say he's not a good quarterback. He did show his wheels, which is awesome. I don't expect Duke to win a bunch of games, but Riley Leonard as a prospect, I really like him, and he's in argument to be one of the top 7 QBs of this class. Will Shipley was the limelight for Clemson. I thought he looked great. I thought moving forward, he's definitely going to be a centerpiece and a focal piece for them, having double-digit carries, over 100 yards. But it's still going to be a rough year for it if that's all they have, because he's not someone that we're going to see take over a game. They're not going to win single-handedly because of Will Shipley. He can have a great game and move them down the field, but the defenses are going to hone in on that. And if they can't move Klubnik around and help him get outside the pocket, make better throws, just be more aware, even have the wide receivers get open, and as you mentioned, gain that separation, Clemson's in for a rude awakening, and it's going to come really quickly.
Well, you mentioned Riley Leonard, and I really hope he comes back for another season. I think in this draft class, for the 2024 draft class, he's going to get lost in it. Yeah. He's super talented, but you're talking about guys like J.J. McCarthy, Quinn Ewers, Drake May, obviously Caleb Williams, Joe Milton, Michael Penix. Michael Pratt is another guy who's really intriguing to me. Riley Leonard has an option to come back for another season. I really think he should, because next season he could potentially be a top 2 or 3 quarterback and be a top 10 to 15 draft pick. This year, I think he'd be lucky to be a 3rd round pick, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think, with this year specifically, there's a couple guys that can go back. If they're not one of the top 3, it's like, yeah, go back, because the 2025 class didn't show out as much, right? So if you had that opportunity to go back and have a successful, if Riley can enter the transfer or something, whatever, have that, but it's gonna be a long road. And I think if you're not a top 3 quarterback this year, then you're gonna get mixed in the shuffle, because there is a lot of talent there where it's not gonna be QB4, QB5. It's gonna be like the top 3, then here's the rest.
Yep, absolutely. And also on Dabo, you were talking about him still living in the Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson era. He has not moved into the transfer portal era at all. He does not go after guys who are in the transfer portal. And as a So, and as an elite big time program, you have to do that. You have to work the portal, because elite guys are going into the portal, and they're going to get scooped up by other big time programs. Like, not to say Keon Coleman would have gone to Clemson, but he allowed him to go to Florida State without even trying.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that. You know, he allowed Devontae Walker to go to North Carolina without even trying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and obviously we're still waiting on Walker to get his waiver. Hopefully that comes down very soon, because there's no way he should be sidelined. But Dabo has to move into a new era here. If he doesn't, Clemson is going to fall way behind, and they will end up being what they were in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they were really an afterthought.
Well, I mean, you used to think about it was okay. We have a solid draft class coming in. That's what it's gonna be, right? And that's something Nick Saban just always had. He just always cycled these. And then you saw, was it Jahmyr Gibbs coming from Georgia Tech? Going there, and it's like, okay, this is something new. And Saban's dabbling in it, and it's like you see, it's not just about the draft class anymore. There's guys out there that are coming from non-Power 5 schools that are big time talents. That if you miss on those opportunities, that's huge. Because that's a guy that is ready to explode. He just hasn't given that opportunity, and this is someone that can be at your program to do something like that.
Yep, absolutely. Andy, you have any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the quarterbacks go, I think Riley Leonard definitely needs that year to come back. He showed flashes last year, but I think he needs to round out his game more. I'm not jersey scouting, but he reminds me of a really poor man's Daniel Jones. Like, he will show flashes and then he'll make plays where you just scratch your head. And with Cade Klubnik, I think it's either Dabo needs to loosen up or he needs to transfer down, because it's not working, and I don't want to pile on my man Will Shipley, but when I was watching that game, he has bricks for hands. I saw him drop like 3 passes, especially at the end where it just pretty much ended the ball game. I've never saw anything in Will Shipley. I don't think at the next level he'll be anything more than a change of pace third down back. Phil Maffa, he's the guy that's got some oomph to him. I mean, he is rocked up, and there was a play where I want to say it was in the second quarter. He caught a swing pass, and he was just like a bowling ball, like good luck trying to stop him. I kind of wish they would use him more, but they obviously won't. As far as the Clemson receivers, I'm a big Antonio Williams guy. They still won't expand what he does. It's all short to intermediate routes. I just did a player profile on him. He is my favorite route runner for his class. He runs routes so crisp. He is so good, so talented, so crisp. He is just smooth, and they won't do anything more than short dinks and dunks with him. And that if they won't change, he's got to go somewhere else to showcase him, because they're not utilizing him correctly. Bo Collins is another one that's got talent. Adam Randall. These are guys that are 4, 5-star recruits, and the coaching staff is treating them like they're a bunch of 1-star, 2-star guys. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. The offense that Dabo is running with the talent he has around him there would work in a FCS program, because you're able to out athlete people. You can't out athlete guys at this level. You have to actually scheme them up, even if it's just a little bit. You have to scheme them up a little bit. I get it. You want the Jimmies and Joes, but you got to have the X's and O's sometimes too, when Dabo doesn't utilize that. All right. Well, let's discuss a few players here. Okay. First guy I really want to talk about Luther Burden. I'm not sure really where to go with Burden. I think he's very talented. I don't think he gets good separation, which is why they have kind of tried to limit his exposure with these short to intermediate passes. They won't send him downfield. Like his average ADOT was like 5.8 yards, which, I mean, that's nothing. that's barely coming out of the backfield.
As the resident Mizzou fan, I'll jump in here and talk about Luther because I obviously watched the whole game being on Thursday night and everything. The issue is I'm not 100% sure it's Luther as it is the QB play. Brady Cook is a solid mid-level college quarterback who has a lot of pride, who wants to be at the school, who tries hard, who does the right things. But, man, he just has no arm skill. He just doesn't. I mean, Missouri fans are just losing it every day about why are we not playing Sam Horn, the 4-star stud quarterback with a cannon that throws 96 for the baseball team as a pitcher. And the issue is Drink just loves Brady Cook. He just loves him. He's going to play him. It doesn't matter what happens. He said it was a quarterback competition. It's not. He showed in the first game. He let Brady Cook play the whole first half. And then when Horn came in, they basically ran the ball and he gave him no opportunities to throw the football at all. So I think for Burden right now, it's going to hurt his stock, definitely, but they just aren't doing anything down the field. They did not throw a pass even remotely past 15 yards until Horn came in the game in the second half. That's their whole offense. So I think for right now, it's going to be hard for Burden to show that he can do that. Now, do I think he has that skill? I do think he has that skill. I think the issue is the play calling and the quarterback. Brady Cook does not push the ball downfield at all. And so I think for Missouri, their thing is like, because they know he won't do that and they know he's not good at that, they're trying to manufacture touches for Burden. He had 7 for 96 and a touchdown. He had a 30-yarder, but that was 100% all yak. I mean, right now he's a yak machine. He's just going to get all the yards after catch. He's going to catch a bunch of short passes. And he's going to make the whole play himself. That's what he does. It's all him. It's all him. And so I think that's the problem is he's going to look great in that aspect, but people are going to question whether he can beat guys down the field. I think he can. I think it's a product of the system. He also did punt return. He had like a 65, 70-yarder he almost took to the house. He got tackled by the last guy, and it got called back. So, I mean, I think the athletic profile is obviously there. I just think it's going to take him with a different QB to be able to show what he actually can do as a full-out receiver. Right now at Missouri, if you're not watching them, he's an athlete. He's an athlete who can't prove that he's a wide receiver. And I don't think that's going to change, at least not this year, until they get a different quarterback.
So, as a Missouri fan, are you advocating that he transfers in order to be able to showcase his skill set?
I would never say that in a million years. He should never transfer. He's the man. Everyone loves him, and they're going to get him the football. So it's not. He's going to get touches. He's going to get touches, and just they're going to have to work around that system. But they're going to work the ball into his hands, and I think that is a difference maker for him. They maybe are not doing what scouts want to see and people want to see right now, but he's going to get touches. They gave him handoffs. They gave him end arounds. They're letting him punt return. He's showing he's got skill. It's just going to take some time where they have the right QB to show that he can break and get people downfield. To me, I'm still on him. There's no reason to be off him at all. But again, until those pro scouts see some of those skills downfield, I think it's a little hard. But he's a yak machine. He reminds me of Deebo Samuel a ton. Mm-hmm. Just a ton. I know everybody else says that too, but I'm like, oh, it's because he kind of does. He's a guy that can do all the stuff that Deebo does.
I was just giving you a hard time right there. I'm trying to put you on the spot.
I said that on air. Oh yeah. My God, dude! My head should be blowing up. I was
trying to put you on the spot with him. I do like Burden. I do think he has I think he has an NFL skill set. I'm going to question his separation skills just because we don't see it. We don't get an opportunity to see it. So until we get an opportunity to see it, I'm going to continue to question it.
Yeah, and again, it's not even just him. If you watch the tape, you watch the game, none of their wide receivers. They've got other talented guys. I mean, they've got Theo Weiss Jr., they've got Mekhi Miller. Both those guys are good wide receivers. They're the same way. They're beating guys. They just can't push the ball downfield. And again, until they make a QB change, which I don't think that's going to be till next season, I just don't think you're going to see it because Brady Cook is just not that guy. He just isn't. He's a nice college quarterback. I like the guy. I mean, Drake says, "Hey, I'd let him date my daughter," but that's what he thinks of him. He thinks he's a super nice guy. He's a good kid. He just doesn't have that arm strength. I think Sam Horn, everybody wants to see Sam Horn get in there. And I think if you actually had Sam Horn in there, you would actually see Tyler Burton downfield getting passes. Or Luther Burton. Sorry, I don't know what Tyler Burton. Oh my God, I was thinking getting Fight Club.
Tyler
Durden. Now I'm talking Fight Burton. Talking Tyler Durden instead of Luther Burton. I'm getting all Fight Clubby up in here. Got me all hot bothered here talking about Luther Burton and getting downfield. So sorry about that. Yes, Luther Burton, not Tyler Burton.
Well, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. So, SC, do you have any thoughts on Luther Burton here?
No, I mean, he hit all the key points. I think the issue is going to be the quarterback play, and what I said with Raheem Jarrett, Luther Burton is the better prospect than Jarrett, but what I said with him last year is don't let bad quarterback play push him down your rankings. This guy's a pro talent. He can definitely get to that next level. Will he be, if he's not a first-round prospect, it's because bad quarterback play, not because of him. There's going to be a lot of things like we're talking about, getting that separation and getting him down the field just to showcase his high point catch and his ability to make the plays and everything. But he's still a good talent. There's still going to be a lot more opportunity for him to showcase that. And I think he's going to be someone that is going to be the highlight for that team. And it's going to be something where if Cook doesn't show out, get him out of there, because you don't want a talent like that to not have those big games. He's destined for it, right? And having a quarterback not get to him as much as he should or even make bigger plays that he should, that's going to be an issue. And hopefully they see that sooner than later.
Well, and to be fair, I don't want to downplay Burton at all. I have him as my wide receiver 2 in the 25 draft class. So the only wide receiver I have ahead of him in that draft class is Evan Stewart. So I don't want to downplay what Burton can do. I'm just saying I want to be able to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you and a lot of other people. I don't know. I think that's just the way it is right now.
Right. Andy, you got any thoughts on Burton?
Yeah. I don't think he is a very good route runner. I think that's the reason why a lot of times you see a lot of short passes and just like something for him to just yak. I can get behind the comp of Debo, but to me, when I look at him, I see a guy that just isn't the most refined route runner, and they just want to get him the ball and just give him the ball in space and just let him create. And so that's my take on him. So I've never been that high on Burton.
Speaking of Debo, a guy that I've gotten more and more, or I've gotten higher and higher on, and is actually a lot like Debo Samuel. I think has the potential to be better than Debo just because I think he's faster, better route runner, all that. Same type of style of play though is Malachi Corley, Western Kentucky wide receiver. I think he has tons of potential, and I think because he plays at Western Kentucky, he doesn't get the exposure and all the national talk. I think he's a guy who's a potential second round draft pick. Could even sneak in there late first.
Yeah, I'll jump in on just real quick. I like him a ton. I think the fact that he's at Western Kentucky would hurt him more in the past, but I think because of the offense, the way things they've done, and their step up in competition this year is going to help him get more looks. I like him a lot. Like, I kind of agree with what you guys said. I just think he's a guy that is a legit, like, he's putting up that stats on a crazy talented offense that is Western Kentucky. But I also think he's a guy that isn't just the stat guy. I mean, he's a guy that actually is bringing the talent.
I mean, he did get hurt on Saturday and was carted off the field, but it was revealed that it was kind of precautionary. He got hit in the chest. So it wasn't anything with his knee, or it wasn't concussion issue. He just got hit in the chest, and they feared some chest bruising, so they wanted to get him off the field. All right, how about we talk about let's talk about Ben Yurachek for Stanford. I know you guys aren't big on Devy tight ends, but that guy looked like an NFL tight end. Big, athletic, can run, can hit the seam, can beat defenders. Very good pass catching tight end. He looked the part for Stanford over the weekend, and I was actually pretty excited with what I saw about him.
I didn't get a chance to watch that game, but I did see some of the highlights, kind of looked at the stats stuff. I think you're right. I mean, the guy's got good size. I was hearing kind of buzz about him in the offseason as about a Devy. Tight ends you're just never quite sure about how people are going to use them, how you're going to see them, because there's guys that don't get used in college that end up being great pro tight ends. So it's kind of a little bit tough. Then you see guys that they use a lot in college that just never translate. But for me, not getting to see a lot of him before now, I was kind of impressed with him.
Yeah, he has the tight end build, and you love to see him be the top guy, in your CFF leagues, because we've talked about it many times where CFF you really don't look at the tight end as much just because you don't see them get that much love. But it looks like he might be the guy for them, and on the draft profile, that's everything you want to see, and everything. His size alone is something that can have him go into a late first or even day 2 pick, but then add that with the opportunities that he's getting and the plays he's making with that opportunity, he could definitely skyrocket if we keep this up all year.
Yeah, I would kind of have him. I mean, I know everybody's obviously high on Brock Bowers. He's gonna be the first tight end off the board. You have Jatavian Sanders. I think Yurachek can push Jatavian Sanders for that tight end 2 spot in this upcoming draft.
And that's unfortunate, but that could be a reason because Jatavian Sanders has more talent around him. But that's also okay because, again, where you see no one's taking Bowers, but where you see that if Ben sees, okay, this is my time to jump those rankings and be the tight end 2 of the class because I'm the most talented out on the field for Stanford, right? Where Jatavian Sanders, no matter which way he looks, unfortunately, he's not the most talented on the field for Texas.
Right. Yeah. And Sanders had a really good breakaway touchdown the other day himself. But I have questions about Sanders. Is he athletic enough to be able to get to be able to beat that fast linebacker kind of intermediate safety? Is he athletic enough to beat those guys? I think Yurachek is a better high pointer. I think Sanders is more of a kind of I'm going to run through you type of guy, and I may be able to turn on the jets if I get past you. But he's going to have to be able to prove he can get past guys. SC, I'm going to talk about a couple of your guys right here, or at least one of them. Colby Young and Mark Fletcher with Miami. Those guys showed to me the other day that they have definite NFL potential. Colby Young was on fire in that game. I thought he made Tyler Van Dyke look better than what Tyler Van Dyke actually is. Van Dyke going into last season was kind of a Devy darling. Proof throughout the year that he was nowhere near ready for the NFL, came back for this season, and Colby Young made him look good. Mark Fletcher was fantastic. I was not nearly high enough on him in the offseason. I should have been higher on him. He showed that he is a definite future NFL running back, in my opinion.
I agree, man. That's music to my ears right there. I mean, I missed the running back show where y'all talked about y'all's top fives. He was my RB3 of the class. I had him behind Baxter and Owens. And I think, to me, just in game one, that kind of solidified it. Coming out of American Heritage, what I saw in his game was just a bruiser that knows how to break away. He knows how to hit that second gear. He's not breakaway speed, but he knows when to hit that second gear to go through. But he's a big body, and that's what you love in these running backs. Like he can go out wide if he needs to, or anything like that. But he's just someone that can power through you, and it translated well to the college era. Now him and Henry Perez kind of had the same thing going there, but I just love that they used him and they got him on the field early. Man, I really enjoyed seeing that. I'm glad that he was able to showcase in what I thought he was. It really just brought smiles to me. Definitely a talent. And I agree with you on Van Dyke. I was never high on him. I actually orphaned the Devy League and dropped him. Kobe Young is just a good receiver, and Tyler Van Dyke is just happy to have that there for him. But the running game in Miami looks stellar, man, with Parrish and with Mark Fletcher there. And Mark Fletcher is going to make a name for himself once he gets that opportunity. And when it's all said and done, man, unless Baxter comes out and just explodes like crazy, I may be moving him to my RB1 if he continues to showcase what he did.
Well, the one downside for Mark Fletcher is he's killing my Trevante Citizen shares. I don't think Citizen has any type of shot to come back and play for Miami now. He's gonna have to go somewhere else in order to be relevant. Well, first of all, he has to get healthy and has to have the ability to get on the field and stay on the field.
I think that's why Fletcher went there too, because I don't think if Citizen was healthy, he necessarily would have went there, because he was looking at, I feel like it was Ohio State as well, but he ended up going back to Miami. But I feel like, before he made that official decision, Ohio State was up there for him to make that, to go there. And I feel they said something about Citizen not being healthy that made him say, okay, I'll be able to go in there and get some possible playing time. And sure enough, he did.
They also have a 4-star coming in next year too. So Citizen shares are done. They're toast.
Yeah, he's going to have to go somewhere else in order to become relevant again. Now, if he were to go somewhere else and start tearing it up, then those shares take a big boost. But right now, he is getting close to being droppable.
Was it a knee injury, I think, for him?
Yeah, it was the ACL, and then he had a setback, I believe, in the fall.
Yeah. All right, Andy, we're going to talk a little bit about your Michigan guys here.
All right. So
talk to me.
So for me, JJ McCarthy's always been the quarterback 3, and he showed poise. Last we remembered him from is the TCU game where he made bad mental mistakes, and that could have carried on, that could have ate at him, but he showed poise. He showed flashes. He showed why he was such a highly coveted recruit. And for me, he's my quarterback 3. As far as the running game goes, I'm still perplexed. I want to see both Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards out there at the same time. I want to see them both out there. I want to see defenses be on their heels and not know what's going to happen. But they don't do that. They play one at a time. And Blake Corum still gets the majority of the workload. Donovan Edwards comes in when it's 2nd and long or 3rd and long, and it's just same old stuff as far as the run game goes. With the receivers, I don't trust Roman Wilson. I've seen that play so many times. He'll probably come back this week against UNLV with 3 catches for 25 yards, and that'll be it. Really, the only thing that I see from there is Colson Loveland. He still showed why he is, for me, my tight end 3 overall for Devy purposes.
Yeah, I've moved him up in my Devy tight end rankings a little bit. Let's see where I've actually moved him up to my. Right now, he's my tight end 14, but he had been in kind of the mid 20s for me. I have since moved him up, since I've been able to see him play a little bit. I've still got a couple freshmen ahead of him, just because I think that this year's freshman class of tight ends is pretty superb. Deuce Robinson is listed as a wide receiver in USC's depth chart. I think he's going to be a tight end in the NFL, so I still have him as a tight end in my rankings. Nicholas Harbor, I think he's going to be a really he's just such a freak athlete. I have to have him pretty high. I have to have him really high in my rankings also. And then I'm actually really high on Ethan Davis out of Tennessee. So those are kind of some freshmen I have ahead of him. Now, obviously, if he continues to be a big focal point and show the type of skill set that's needed for the NFL, I'll move him up a little bit higher, just because he's going to be available a lot sooner than what those other guys will be, and that kind of has a lot to do with it also, as far as whenever you're ranking guys. For the most part, you want to take guys who are going to be available sooner to you if all things are equal. But I do like Loveland. Another guy I really, really like in terms of IDP is Junior Colson. He's actually from East Tennessee, and I was pretty heartbroken whenever he didn't come to UT. But you guys but Michigan got a really, really good linebacker there, and I'm pretty excited to see what he does as a linebacker in terms of being an IDP prospect.
As far as Deuce Robinson goes, do you think he will convert to a tight end or be moved to tight end? Because I really think USC is all in on him being a traditional wide receiver.
That's fine if USC is. I don't think the NFL is going to be. I think the NFL is going to convert him to a tight end just because of the size.
But isn't he down to like 218?
Is he? He dropped that much weight?
I think I want to say I read somewhere that he's like down to 218 or 220, because I was looking up him, and because like earlier on there were reports that he might go baseball, so he wanted to trim down for baseball and be light. And then when he didn't get drafted, he continued to cut weight. And I want to say it was like 218 or 220. And then with USC, they were really happy with that. And that's why he's getting playing time at a wide receiver.
Yeah, they have him listed at 225. I just don't see him. I don't see him being able to keep that weight off, especially since he's dropped so much of that weight to begin with. He's going to eventually put weight on. I mean, he was well up over. He was close to 240 at at one point. And as an 18-year-old kid, he's going to put weight on. Kind of like Harbor. Harbor didn't want to commit to playing tight end because he didn't want to gain the weight. But when he started gaining the weight, he had no choice. He wanted to keep the weight off in order to run track. And I think Robinson's going to be kind of the same thing, in that way. He's going to end up being, 240, 245 by the time it's all said and done. So will the NFL keep him at wide receiver? I think the NFL is going to eventually move him to tight end, because I think that's his more natural position. That's what he's. I don't necessarily now. He may not be an inline tight end. He may be a Travis Kelce type guy where they move him all over the field. But I think that's what his home is going to end up being.
Wouldn't it be funny if the Falcons drafted him with Arthur Smith, and they used him and Kyle Pitts as inline blockers?
Oh. So awful. Utilize these guys in the proper way. I mean, come on. Pitts is a big wide receiver. Utilize him that way. He's not even as big as Kelce, is he?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So
no.
Pitts is more of a slot receiver than what Travis Kelce is. So, trying to play some of these guys as inline tight ends, as extra offensive tackles, doesn't work. They're not built for that. That's not their skill set. it kills me how stubborn some of these coaches are. Instead of tailoring their game plans towards their talent, they try to make their talent fit into their game plan, and it kills them every time. The most successful coaches, like Andy Reid, will actually take his talent and utilize it. He doesn't stick them in bad spots and just say, "Hey, you just go over there and block." Like, no, that's not how football works. You know, I get so aggravated with these coaches sometimes that think that they're so smart, that they're smarter than everybody else just because they don't want to utilize a guy the proper way. Arthur Smith is just is one of those guys. Brian Kelly is another one of those guys. They just don't want to utilize guys in the proper ways, and they, Brian, Belichick is another one. He does the same thing. He doesn't utilize it. He had, without Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, in my opinion, is not a Hall of Fame coach. Tom Brady without Bill Belichick is a Hall of Fame quarterback. This is a whole nother discussion for another time.
We're getting hot taking now. We're getting crazy.
We're getting completely. You got me on a tangent now, and now I'm just going.
In fairness, I don't think Arthur Smith is a head coach when Deuce Robinson comes out, though. I think his time will be gone by then.
Thanks, Andy. You got me going here.
He's like, back to Devy. Back to
back to Devy here. All right, a couple guys that I specifically am wanting to talk about just because I'm a fanboy is Joe Milton and Jalen Wright. Joe Milton to me is one of those guys who is fighting for that, QB2, QB3 in this upcoming draft class. He has all the tools. And he had a very solid game over the weekend. He had one series where he had 3 consecutive bad throws. One just kind of sailed on him. Another one kind of short hopped a guy. But other than that, he made one bad decision, in my opinion. He threw into triple coverage, trying to fit it into a tight window, and it almost got intercepted. Other than that, I thought he played a very solid game. He was actually named the SEC Co-Offensive Player of the Week. So I just don't like the narrative that he's inaccurate. I don't like the narrative that he's always overthrowing guys. This was several years ago.
When he was at Michigan.
When he was at Michigan, and then whenever he first got to UT. I mean, we're talking 2, 3, 4 years ago whenever this narrative started. It's not the same Joe Milton anymore. Joe Milton is a smart quarterback. He makes good decisions with the football. He has an amazingly big arm, and he's very mobile for his size. I mean, the guy's 6'5", 240, and runs like he's 215. He's not going to be the fastest guy, but he's fast enough to be able. And that stiff arm he had, where he just threw his arm out at that defender and just threw him backwards. What quarterback does that? I mean, honestly. So I just think he has all the tools. I'm going to continue hyping up Joe Milton. I think he deserves to be hyped up. I don't think he deserves to have that negative narrative placed on him. I mean, people are still showing highlights of 3 years, 2 and 3 years ago, whenever he was overthrowing guys. While he's been at Tennessee, do you know how many interceptions he's thrown? Go ahead, guess.
I'm going to say 0 just because that sounds like a trick question.
0. He's thrown 0 interceptions.
Winner.
He's thrown 0 interceptions while at Tennessee. Going on in his 3rd season in the program. Now, I get it. He has not been a full-time player, but he has thrown 12 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. To me, that is a special stat. Now, I fully expect him to throw 4, 5, 6 interceptions this year. Fine. But he deserves to be in that conversation for that QB3, in my opinion.
I mean, for me, I think it's going to come down to, a couple of their major games. I mean, how does he look? Because that was, Hendon Hooker, he played great against Alabama, played great against some other people. That got him in the conversation. I think that's what you're going to see with Milton. I just don't think the doubters are going to believe it until they see him do it against a top flight SEC defense. And now he looked good against Virginia, but I also think Virginia is one of the worst teams in the country.
Oh, they are.
I mean, they're really, really bad. So I think he's going to have a shot, but it's going to be that stretch of South Carolina, Texas A&M, Alabama. When he plays those games, if he balls out in those 3 weeks in a row, I think that's where you're going to see maybe the narrative change around Milton.
He also killed Clemson in the bowl game. So I mean, he absolutely ran through Clemson in the Orange Bowl. So I mean, there is tape out there for him going up against top flight competition.
Yeah, and I think that's when people will finally jump on board when they see him this year against some of those teams. And if he balls out the way we think he can, then I think that's where you're going to see the narrative change. And people are going to be like, he's going to start jumping up draft boards because then everybody's going to say, okay, he did play well. Oh, how big is he? How tall is he? How fast is he running? And people are going to be like, oh, never mind. Like, I'm in. I'm 100% in on him. And I think that's what's going to happen. I just don't think you're going to see people do it until you get to that stretch of the schedule.
Yeah. And also kind of speaking around it, I'm actually rooting for Anthony Richardson to have a good year because I think that if Anthony Richardson has a good year, it will show that a quarterback that is like that has that type of special talent, regardless of what they did in college, can be a big-time NFL quarterback. So I'm actually rooting for Anthony Richardson in terms of getting Joe Milton drafted highly.
I think it's unfortunate for Joe that he's in the same group as Shadir, where if they make one mistake, the world's going to go against him. You know what I mean? Like, it's something where it's like he can do all these great things, and there's that saying, you can do 100 right, but they're going to remember the one time he did something bad, and that's going to be the thing that hangs over him, where it's just if he has one play that's just a clear – he should have made that throw. It's an interception. People are going to eat him alive for that. He's got to really just go out there and ball. And that's even head coaches. They may say that like, maybe he isn't accurate. He just did that play, So the eyes are really on him and like Shadir to just have perfection. And that's unfortunate, but these are two guys that can rise to the occasion. They're both in great systems. They're both in systems that are letting them be them and just survive. So everything's in front of him, and it's going to be unfortunate if that one thing happens and everyone just says, okay, he's the quarterback we thought. And you shouldn't think that because he is a good talent.
I actually want to get back to that point here in a minute whenever we discuss the next guy I'm wanting to talk about. But Andy, I want to get your opinion on Milton here, being a Michigan guy.
Okay, going back to Michigan, he always had the tools. The thing that I didn't like about him was he only had a fastball. It didn't matter if it was a 5-yard out route, a slant, a curl, a deep ball. He would chuck that thing as hard as he could, and it would just bounce off guys. So that was always my knock on him when he was at Michigan, was he has all the tools. I mean, if you look at him and you watch him play, you're like, that's a first-round pick. But then you'll kind of look at him and then you'll see, okay, he doesn't change velocity. He's in a system at Tennessee where it's pretty much one read and go. And that is going to be another knock on him in the NFL. And the final knock on him is going to be his age. He's going to be 24 by the time the draft hits. And we know the NFL likes young guys. So they're going to be like, he's 24. He's coming from a Tennessee offense with Heupel. That's a one read and go. And we have past tape where we just see bullets and him overshooting guys, like you said, from 3-4 years ago. But all it takes is one executive to take a shot on him. So I don't think he's a first-round guy, but I think he can get into the second round.
Another guy I'm wanting to talk about from Tennessee is Jalen Wright. He's put on some good weight in this offseason. He's no longer a smallish type of running back. He's up to over 210 now, which is kind of right in that running back sweet spot. He's getting more and more involved in the pass offense. He actually caught a couple passes this past weekend. Very good pass blocker. He's worked on that a ton in the offseason, and he was really explosive running through the line on Saturday, which is something that he wasn't really just a super explosive guy last year. He had his moments of where he had burst, but he looks like a completely different running back this year. And as a junior, he's draft eligible. Whether he comes out or not, I think that's the plan, is for him to come out after this year. I think he's a guy who could start rising up running back rankings, just because he's going to get the run, so he's going to have new film to be able to watch, and I think in a combine setting, he's going to be really, really solid whenever it comes to workouts. I don't know if you guys have watched him at all or not, but those are kind of my opinions on him.
I've watched some tape on him, and there are things that I like. The fact that he is above 200 pounds now is definitely a pro. Selfishly, I do want him to leave because
you have Cam Seldon.
I am infatuated with Cam Seldon. I think he's one of a kind. So I am just waiting for him to get his opportunity.
Well, I'm going to go and tell you this right now. Having watched this offense ever since Heupel's gotten here now, obviously, because before that, the offense was garbage. Heupel will utilize multiple running backs all the time. So it will not just be one running back's job. So Seldon will not get a full load to carry. Next year, if Wright's gone, I expect Small to come back. So you're looking at Small and Sampson and Seldon. Then you're looking at Sampson and Seldon and probably like a Khalifa Keith or whoever else that they bring in. But that offense will never just be carried by one sole running back. Just basing it off of what Heupel's always done here. So if you own Seldon in a C2C CFF type of setting, I would not expect him to give you 20 plus points consistently. That offense just is not going to support that, because they're going to have multiple running backs in and out of the game.
And I would still buy him all day long.
Right.
All I need from him is 12 touches a game.
Yeah, because you're going to get him into the NFL, and that's the long game here.
Yeah,
right.
All I want is 12 touches. That's all I want.
Right. Now, going back to SC's point about being a guy that if you make one mistake, people are going to really chastise you and say, well, he's not as good as what everybody, he's not as good as what he's been showing lately. He made one mistake. Quinn Ewers is that type of guy too. I think Quinn Ewers has all types of talent. In my opinion, he may be the guy who takes over that QB2 spot from Drake May, just because of his pure talent. I don't think Drake May has that type of pure talent. He doesn't have the same arm talent that Quinn Ewers has, and I think Quinn Ewers just has that type of QB mind. He's got good footwork, and prior to him getting injured last year, he was killing Alabama. And it, broke his collarbone, was out for a few weeks, came back. It was never really quite the same.
Came back way too soon.
This year, I think you're going to see what Quinn Ewers really is, and that is a top 10 draft pick. I think he is that type of dude.
I'm not.
I agree. So I was just going to jump in. I think Ewers one of those, as far as fans are concerned, the expectations were so high that it was almost impossible for him to live up to. But I think as far as Devy and actually NFL scouts, I mean, I think they still see the talent. I still think that he's got a chance to really move himself up the rankings as far as NFL wise. So for for me, I'm not worried about whether he can be an NFL quarterback. The question is, where does he go? Does he skyrocket to the top of the draft, or is he a guy that falls just a bit? But to me, he's going to be an NFL guy. It just matters. And Devy, for me in Devy circles, how much were you willing to spend on him? How early were you going to take him to make sure you got him? Or were you someone who was willing to sit around and say, hey, I'll let him kind of fall to me if he gets out of a certain range? But yeah, I agree. I still think he has all the talent. I definitely am not passing over his talent. I think he's a guy that's got every chance to be a top 5 guy.
Well, I recently did a trade that motivated my most recent article that I wrote that just published today. It was a dynasty debate on AJ Brown and Jalen Waddle. But the trade that motivated it was I traded away Jalen Waddle and Drew Aller for AJ Brown and Quinn Ewers. I don't think there's that much separation between AJ Brown and Jalen Waddle, and I don't think there's much separation in Quinn Ewers and Drew Aller either.
I actually like that trade.
Yeah,
because for me, with Tyreek, he's going to be gone. He even said he's going to be gone in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So Waddle's going to be the guy there. Whether or not Tua's still going to be there, that's another question. But with that system, it's going to enhance Waddle. Whereas A.J. Brown's going to have Devonta Smith, and even if he doesn't re-sign, the Eagles probably draft someone else that's just as good. They have Goddard, and then they have Hurts who will just run the ball. As far as the 2 college quarterbacks, I am much lower on Drew Aller than most. I think he's talented, but when you watch his tape, he doesn't make the fast reads. He holds the ball on too long, and he's not athletic enough. I like Quinn Ewers more than Drew Aller. So in that trade, I love it. Yeah.
I actually got back AJ Brown. I got back AJ Brown and Quinn Ewers. But in my opinion, there's not much separation in those 2 wide receivers or those 2 quarterbacks. I took Brown in that mainly because target share stipulates Brown is going to have more opportunity. And then the fact that he has a more certain situation at quarterback than what Jalen Waddle has. Jalen Waddle has Tua there, but Tua's injury history and the uncertainty that, if he gets another concussion, he could be done. He was contemplating retirement in the offseason. Just because, what if he takes another shot to the head?
I think the only way you lose that trade is if Ewers doesn't get into the first round. Because right now in the 2025 class, it does look like Aller might be at QB1. So he's a possibly first-round pick. Where Ewers, Drake May, there's going to be a lot that Caleb Williams has to do for him to be knocked out QB1. But Drake May, to me, didn't have an impressive game this past week. So the quarterback 2 race got a lot tighter. And Quinn Ewers can be that guy that jumps in to elevate him to that first-round pick, and that will help. But if Quinn Ewers goes a day 2 and Aller goes, first round, that's going to be the difference maker there to say just because of opportunity. They're more likely to give Aller opportunity in the pros if he goes in the first round than he would Ewers at 2 or 3. So that'll be the biggest difference there on where they go. But, I mean, I love the talent there too. I know there's he has opportunity around him, and as you mentioned, dicing up against Alabama, that's a top tier team, and he's going to have a great year last year in that Big 12. Where moving forward, even with Arch there going in the SEC, that could be difficult there for him.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, Arch is a non-factor right now. Arch isn't even the backup quarterback right now.
Yeah, it's Murphy.
Yeah, it's Malik Murphy, right? So I don't think there's any type of quarterback controversy at all. I don't think there's any type of competition at all. That is Ewers' job. And I don't think there's any way he comes back for another season unless he just has an awful season and is undraftable. I don't see that happening. Again, I think Texas has potential to make the college football playoff. I think Ewers is going to be a Heisman candidate because of it. And I think he's going to be pushing for that QB2 spot and becoming a top 5 to top 10 draft pick.
One thing about Drake May, people are saying he had, he struggled or he didn't play up to par. What if that's who Drake May is and Phil Longo propped him up last year?
Right.
No one talks about that.
Yeah.
Phil Longo left.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the huge issue. I think what you see, that's who Drake May really is.
I think Drake May has happy feet too.
Yeah.
I don't think he has very good footwork at all. I think he's good when he gets outside the pocket and can run, but inside the pocket, I think he gets a little nervous and gets happy feet, which kind of causes him to have bad mechanics, bad accuracy. Now, when he has time to throw and he's able to kind of calm himself and stand there and be still, he can make plays. When he's under duress and when he's nervous about getting hit, he gets happy feet and his accuracy kind of flies out the window and he has to start scrambling around. And when he scrambles around, he can get outside the pocket and run the ball. Okay. But when he's forced to throw while scrambling around, that's when he's going to have issues.
Agreed.
I mean, I'm worried about that. Just the talent at North Carolina around him. They used a 5th-year running back all game who basically was a special teams player his whole career, and that was their number 1 running back. I was like, I could see him struggling because with the way all the guys around him, I don't see it happening the way it happened last year.
And that was the question we talked about prior to, was who's going to step up and make that Josh Downs role, right? Who's going to be that target for him? And you can say Pacehour, but, there's going to be a lot of question marks going in, and his QB2 spot wasn't solidified. It's like, okay, right now you're the QB2 of the class, but he hasn't quite solidified that. And moving forward, there's going to be some big games where you're going to have to show out.
His best receiver is not eligible to play because of the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's unfortunate.
What they are doing to
Devontae Walker.
Yeah. Okay. When he first transferred, it wasn't because of a better opportunity. The school that he was playing at didn't play football.
Yeah.
So how can you initially grant that waiver to North Carolina and then 8 months later take it back, and then you're just going to drag your feet in the mud and not make a decision? He missed the first game. There's no decision. Yeah, he's going to miss the second game. You are playing around with this kid's future. Mm-hmm. If you didn't want to grant him that transfer, he would have stayed at Kent State.
Right.
That's the messed up thing about the whole situation.
Yeah.
This is classic NCAA move. I mean, this is classic stuff they've been doing for decades.
Yeah.
And
it's not like he transferred because of some NIL opportunity. It's not like he transferred because, I just wanted to go to a better program. No, he transferred to be closer to his sick grandmother. I mean, he literally went back. He literally went back closer to home in order to be closer to her. And the NCAA is really screwing him over right now.
After they said yes,
after 8 months
later.
Right.
8 months later, they say, you know what? We were kidding about giving you that waiver. We're taking it back.
Yep. Free Tez. That's all I'm going to say about it right there. Free Tez. That's all it needs to be said. The NCAA should be ashamed of themselves. I think that they're going to have to just for public opinion, they're going to have to grant him his waiver in the next week or so. There's no way that they're going to be able to allow this to drag on any further.
There's going to be an uproar, documentary about it and everything.
Yeah, I mean the NCAA is I mean they're already getting dragged for this, but they're going to get destroyed for this if it goes any further.
They were giving away waivers left and right, and then all of a sudden they're like, nope, not anymore. Made no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, guys, we're pushing an hour 50 here. I'm gonna leave some meat on the bone for our next show because there's plenty of guys we can talk about. I'm really interested to see what Jaden Rashada does over the next couple weeks. I'm really interested to see if Braylon Allen can continue to be a pass catching back. But we're going to leave that for another time, and we're going to go ahead and call it a show tonight. Guys, go ahead and tell us where we're able to find you. Go ahead and tell us what it is you're working on, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah, you can find me on the X, JT Orange. Hit me up about kind of anything on that. Always here with you guys on the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. You can find me on The Stew with JT Brew on Dynasty Pros Football YouTube channel. All kinds of college and pro betting content. I got all my preseason stuff up there now, so go ahead and check that out. If you're an IDP guy, I got rankings and articles on DLF.com, and then I also am writing a once-a-week feature for Fantrax on IDP. So if you are one of those guys, jump over and check that info out as well.
Nice. You can find me at the PPR show on X, doing this Devy show, every Tuesday with y'all, just breaking down the Devy League community, the CFF. I'm going to be doing some threads every week, just my weekly learnings of quarterback, running back, and wide receivers. And I'm also partnering with Nino Brown. Follow him, Nino Brown _T2T, to bring IDP content for the college football leagues. And then start shits on RPO, IDP articles coming out. And also going to be with Aaron St. Dennis, the mad scientist, going over weekly start sits, waiver wires, game plans, everything like that for the NFL. We have a show coming out, the Rat Pack Dynasty Crew, that will be airing this upcoming week for the NFL.
And you can find me at Andy_fam1. I'm doing 3 articles a week. Every Monday, I'm doing a stock up, stock down, player to watch for your C2C, CFF waiver wires. I'm also doing a player profile in the middle of the week. And to end your week, I'm doing a weekly preview of games to watch for Devy and C2C purposes, all at Dynasty Pros. And if you don't like Will Shipley, follow me.
Follow him anyways. Is a good follow. He puts out great content. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Go ahead and do us a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the like button, comment, hit us up on Twitter, ask us questions. If you want to get involved in the show at all, we'll bring the questions up. If you have any trades you need advice on, we'll be happy to talk about them on here. Also, go check out the website. Also, DynastyProsFootball.com. We have Devy rankings. We have a trade calculator. We have everything you could want on there. IDP rankings, everything. Go check us out. And until next time, we will see you later.